Welcome to Reddit on Reddit by Half Pressed, a collection of creepy encounters. I let a stranger hide in my apartment, and I don't know if I regret it. This happened last year, and I still don't know if I made the right call. It was around 11 p.m., and I had just gotten home from a late shift. I live in a small apartment in a not-so-great part of the city, so I'm always a little on edge when walking home. That night felt off. As I was unlocking my door, I noticed a guy standing at the end of the hallway. He wasn't doing anything, just standing there, but something about him made my stomach drop. I got inside, locked the door, and tried to shake it off. Not even 5 minutes later, someone knocked. Hard. I froze. It wasn't my neighbor. She texts before coming over. And I don't really have friends who drop by unannounced. Then, a voice. "Please, can you just let me in for a second?" It was a woman. She sounded out of breath, almost panicked. I looked at the peephole, and there she was, maybe mid-20s, wide eyes, glancing down the hall like she was being followed. I know, stupid move. But I cracked the door open just a little and asked her what was going on. She whispered that there's a guy. He's been following her since she left the train. She didn't know where else to go from there. That's when I realized. The guy that I saw earlier. My heart was racing, but I stepped aside and let her in. I locked the door immediately, turned off the lights, and we just stood there in the dark, listening. A few seconds later, heavy footsteps passed my door. Slow. Like someone was looking for something. And then, nothing. She stayed for about 30 minutes, just sitting on my couch, shaking. I offered her water, and we barely talked. Eventually, she called a friend to come pick her up. When she left, she just said thank you and disappeared down the hall. I never saw her again. I don't know if she was telling the truth. Maybe she was genuinely in danger, but I think about that night all the time, and I can't decide if I did the right thing, or if I got really, really lucky. He got off on my floor, followed me, and then called my room. This happened when I was 16, during a family vacation in Turkey. We were staying at a fancy, all-inclusive resort, 5 stars, big hotel complex, nice place overall. Everything was great until one evening after dinner. We were going to head out again later that night, and I realized I had left my jacket in the room, so I went back alone to grab it. I took the elevator, and right before the doors closed, a man stepped in with me. I pressed the button for the 3rd floor. He didn't press anything. When the elevator stopped, I got off, and so did he. I started walking down the long hallway toward our room. It was a big, winding hotel layout with lots of branching corridors. But as I walked, I could feel him behind me, getting closer and closer. My gut suddenly screamed, "If you don't run now, you're going to die." I've never felt dread like that in my life. So I sprinted the last stretch to our room, slammed the door shut, and just stood there trying to catch my breath. I was shaken, but I figured that was it. Creepy guy, overactive imagination, nothing actually happened, right? Wrong. I stayed in the room for a bit, trying to calm down. Then, just as I was thinking about heading back out, the hotel phone rang. I picked it up. It was a man's voice. He told me I was beautiful, started asking my name. I was in shock. He started telling me about the disgusting things he wanted to do to me. It was vile and explicit. I hung up immediately. My heart was racing. I was crying and trembling. And then the phone rang again and again, non-stop. That's when it hit me. He saw which room I went into. Despite me sprinting, he'd still managed to track exactly where I was staying, and that was all he needed to call the room. I didn't want to leave the room because I was too scared. I couldn't stop imagining him waiting just outside or finding another way in. I felt completely trapped. Eventually, after I didn't show up, my parents became worried and came back to the room. My dad walked in just as the phone rang again. This time, he picked it up. The moment my dad said hello, the line went dead. The guy didn't call again. I never saw him again. The hotel was big enough that maybe he was staying in a different wing. We'll never know. My parents just kind of brushed it off. They told me not to make drama, that creepy stuff happens sometimes and it's over now, so let's move on. To this day, 12 years later, dim and/or quiet hotel hallways make me incredibly uneasy, and I hate walking to hotel rooms on my own. My ex-friend's older brother followed me in a Chuck E. Cheese. This happened 7 years ago, in 2018. I, 16 male at the time, was invited to my ex-friend's birthday party. 16 female at the time. Let's call her Anna. Anna was part of my friend group, where I was the only boy in the group. So she invited all my friends too. My mom took me to the Chuck E. Cheese and stayed. This detail is important later in my story. We entered and sat at a table and ordered pizza. Then, Anna's older brother arrived at the party. She introduced him to everyone. Let's call him Alex. So, Alex looked to be in his 20s, over 6 feet, and in the 200 pounds weight range. For comparison, I was 5'10", and still needed to look up at him, and weighed like 120 pounds. He wore an old zip-up hoodie and sweatpants, and a plain t-shirt. He looked like a basement-dwelling internet creep, with the vibes to match. My best friend and I, after eating pizza, went to the arcade to play. We were so good that we emptied a machine of its tickets. We decided to split the tickets between us. The day was going great. I ate pizza, I was hanging out with my friends, had a shit ton of tickets to change for a prize. But then my mom called me over to the table and said to me, "That guy, Alex, he's following you. Do you want to leave?" I stupidly said no because I still wanted to hang out with my friends some more. My mom said, "Okay, but be very careful and under no circumstances go to the restroom alone." I went back to the arcade with a feeling of anxiety. I planned to go where all my friends were hanging out, but because I saw him following me and hid behind a game, I turned around and I didn't. Instead, I walked randomly and aimlessly to see if he really was still following me. As it turns out, he did. I walked and stopped several times to check, and he always was just a few feet behind me. At this point, I was getting frustrated and, just leave me alone, bro. Then I decided to go to the prize counter and trade my tickets in for a prize. But that was a mistake, because the line to the prize counter was next to the restrooms. But I stayed there, last in line, waiting for my turn, when Alex came up behind me and just stayed there. Then he tried to have small talk with me, and I awkwardly replied. I don't remember if the line was moving or not, but I felt him getting closer to me, and every time he did, I became more and more anxious and uncomfortable. I couldn't handle it anymore. I turned around to face him, gave him all of my tickets, and just left. He sounded shocked and surprised from the sound of his voice. But I didn't care to look back at him as I was heading to my mom. I told her I wanted to leave, and we left without saying goodbye. After we left, the mom of another one of my friends, who's also friends with my mom, told her that after we left, Alex started following her son, who was younger than I was. They also left after that happened. The day after, I went to school to confront Anna about her brother. You will not believe what she said to me. It's no big deal. I'm sorry, what? What do you mean it's no big deal? I kept pressing her about it, but she just kept dismissing it, and I gave up, and that was that. I didn't cut her off because she was still part of the friend group, but luckily she did change schools the next year. So that was my creepy encounter with a creep that might be attracted to young kids.